Greetings, everybody! Welcome once more to the Dracovin Empire! Are you ready to dive back in time once more? Yes, today we're going to be talking about Magic the Gathering history and discussing a product I don't normally discuss on this series. An online-only product. I don't normally talk about these, but we'll dive into it. I'll explain it all. We'll go over it. It's going to be a kind of interesting deep dive into this different kind of thing. I'm, of course, your host and guide here, Dracovin. Hello, hi, thank you very much for joining us today. Please do remember to give me a little bit of tip that helps me before we go through our time portal back in time and just, do the YouTube things. Make sure you're subscribed and all the various liking and all that kind of stuff that you do over there. All right, time portal's open. Let's get going. We have to head back in time. Not just any time. We're heading back to the exciting year of 2013. Ooh, the past 15 years ago. We've arrived. So, it's January. It's 2013. Why the hell am I talking about an online-only topic? Well, there's some good reason behind it. A major figure that's going to appear in Magic appears. Well, has been around, but really here's as part of creating Magic, as part of this product. Let's start from the basics. So this is the symbol. There really isn't a title on it. It's an online-only product, but it's exclusively Magic Online. So we're talking, this is the precursor to Arena, which is the big Magic Online way to play now. Magic Online does kind of exist, and you theoretically could purchase it now. But again, I believe the MSRP should have been around $20, but now you can really get it like $30 or $40. It's kind of one of those things that's, it's an online-only product. It was officially released on January 11th, 2013, and it is connected with Scars of Mirrodin. Mirrodin Pure, New Phyrexia, hey, the entire storyline that happened with that, that's what this is based upon. The two sides of this. And again, the storyline's already gone at this point in time. Spoiler, New Phyrexia 1, there's a set named after it, hey. But the designer was Gavin, which is a name which shows up a lot nowadays when it comes to Magic. As a person that's pretty big, basically the face of Magic in many ways, as he's been in the last kind of like 5 years. So that's why, yeah, it's important. But Gavin wasn't really working for Wizards at the time? Let me explain all of this mess and what it means. And to talk about that, we have to talk about the mock-up, the product that never existed. So this here is a virtual deck box. It's a mock-up of what the box would have looked like if they had sold it ever any place. But basically, this was a competition by Duel decks, where an MTG community member could send in a deck list representing two factions. They had to be basically based on Mirrodin Pure, New Phyrexia. That was the idea. But you could submit one deck for each size. They must be 60 cards. The Mirrodin Pure will be based around Platinum Angel, New Phyrexia, Phyrexian Plague Lord. Those will be the mythic rares. Mythic rares, even though technically Plague Lord isn't a mythic, it'll be the mythic for this one. Yeah, those will be the mythic rares, and those are the only ones that are allowed. No opposing faction cards are allowed, and each deck should have 4 to 8 rares and 20 to 28 lands. And you will also need a 250-word explanation of this deck. Guess who won? Gavin. So, the winning deck list was by Gavin, and this was before he was working on Wizards of the Coast. He would go to work on it, but just as a little brief thing here on Gavin, since I got an image of him I found online, I think this is either on his Twitter or Instagram. Anyway, he was originally a former pro player in Magic the Gathering. Yeah, pro. And he eventually became a game designer developer for Wizards of the Coast. This is probably one of those points in time which kind of links him turning from pro player to designer, I would kind of say. So, yeah. And he's kind of that 5th generation he's kind of considered part of, and kind of came in a couple years after here. But this may be kind of his intro in a lot of ways to this. We'll talk about there's a nod to this set later on, but interestingly enough, it is something that came about that this may have helped bring him into where we know of him today. this online product. That's why this is an important stepping stone. Yeah, it only came out online, but hi, Gavin. Let's talk about the two decks, though. The two ones that Gavin came up with. So, of course, we have Platinum Angel. This is the required card that's part of it. And each of these decks will have 7 other rares in them. So it was between that 4 to 8, without the mythic on top of it. Platinum Angel, of course, famous for you can't lose the game, your opponents can't win the game. A very famous one. Also, the Mirrodin Pure deck, in this case, was a blue-white deck. While the new Phyrexia deck, a black-green deck. Very traditional colors for both of these sides, but again, I can kind of see some other color combinations, so it's a very interesting one that was built. We have Argent Sinks, and you can see these are the cards for Magic Online, though, may I note, if you can see them on here. They have the symbol on there. Flying Metalcraft here. You exile it, return to the battlefield under control at the beginning of your next end step, and you have to have 3 more artifacts for that, so it blinks. Duplicate, when imprints, when it enters the battlefield, you can exile target non-token creature. As long as that exiled creature is your exiled card is a creature card, it has the power and toughness of that, and it's still a shapeshifter. Interestingly enough. Grand Architects, which boosts blue creatures and makes artifact creatures blue, and tap an untapped blue creature you control, add 2 mana to activate artifacts or cast artifact spells. The good old Kordotha Forge Master. These are a lot of Scars of Mirrodin block cards. Tap, sacrifice 3 artifacts, search your library for an artifact card to put in the battlefield, shuffle your library. Hey, this has been a really great way to cheat in some very powerful artifacts, so I can support Master there. A Silent Arbiter. No more than 1 creature can attack each combat, no more than 1 creature can block each combat. White Sun Zenith, of course, which creates a bunch of cat tokens, and they get shuffled in its owner's library. And, of course, then Blink Moth Nessus, which taps to add colorless, but it becomes a flying Blink Moth artifact creature that's still land, or it can boost a creature, getting a +1/+1 to land turn. The new Phyrexia deck, of course, had Phyrexian Plague Lord at top of it. This is, like, maybe the only time Plague Lord was mythic. I think it's normally been rare, and this is one that I've... Just to say, like, this is one I've played with in places before. So I think this is really the only time it's appeared as mythic. And, yeah. The Plague Lord here is an interesting one. I like it a lot. I have it in some black sacrificial decks. You tap and sacrifice it to give something -4/-4 at the end of turn. That's fine. That's a big, like, I need to get rid of something. I need to do it now. But the big thing here is sack a creature, target creature gets -1/-1 till end of turn. Yeah. In a token deck, sacrificing a lot of stuff. Also, it's a great way of having an opportunity to sacrifice something. Necroskitter is a 1/4 Wither. Whenever a creature an opponent controls with a -1/-1 counter on it dies, you may return that card to the battlefield under your control. I like this one. Hey, give things -1/-1 counters. Granted, it's great with the Wither. We're talking new Phyrexia. Infect. -1/-1 counters. Proliferate. Yeah. Desecration Elemental, an 8/8 Fear. And whenever a player casts a spell, sacrifice a creature. Yeah, it's got a big, like, cost, but it's pretty cheap for an 8/8. And, you know, as long as you have creatures to sacrifice and have ways of bringing creatures back or creating tokens, you can just feed that. You have things like, of course, the good old Meiotic Slime, where if it dies, you get 2 2/2s, and when each of them dies, you get 2 1/1s. So out of this one creature, you can get 7 creatures. Guy we just talked about there. Hey, I have 7 sacrifices to that guy. 8/8 Fear. Just might murder an enemy then. Very efficient. Protean Hulk. When it dies, search your library for any number of creature cards with a converted mana cost of 6 or less. Put them in the battlefield, shuffle your library. Granted, it's only 6, but you get a lot of small creatures, 1 fairly big creatures. There's some combos you could do with that. Of course, Phyrexian Altar. Famously part of an infinite of some various combos and stuff, because sacrifice a creature, add 1 mana of any mana to your mana pool. There are other ways that you can do stuff with this, but there are things you can do with Phyrexian Altar. reprocess, where you're sacrificing them where artifact creatures or lands, and draw a card for each permanent sacrifice that way. Again, tokens, creatures that give you stuff when they die. There's a lot of reasons to do this. A bunch of cards you can get. Black Sun Zenith, the other Zenith. Put X -1/-1 counters on each creature, then shuffle it into your library. You shrink everything. You might just want to do that to get -1/-1 counters on opponents' things to then, if you would enhance this deck with, you know, proliferate. But those are the rares of those two decks. Mystery Booster 2! Okay. We do have to talk about this just a little bit, because Gavin has said that he included in Mystery Booster 2 a reprint of the Spawning Pit from this set as an homage to this product here. A Spawning Pit being an artifact that was in this, showing up in Mystery Booster 2. So it's an interesting thing that, like, this was Gavin's first product. And I don't know if he was already planning on becoming a developer or not, but this, certainly speaking, got his foot into the door, you can kind of say. As a pretty major figure today in Magic the Gathering, it's interesting to see this product line that, yeah, it was online only. It was kind of an interesting idea. It's not really something we saw ever physically, these, you know, 260 card decks. But it is something kind of important there because it is another way of showing off these ideas of dual decks. That decks can be built with a purpose. Having a design competition was a very interesting one too. It means that people were coming up with concepts of these two things. What would a Mirrodin Pure, what would a new Phyrexia mean in a dual deck? How would you build it around two powerful things? Platinum Angel, where you're not losing the game, where where you have this entire very protective barrier where you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. Or the Flag Lord, who, I'm sorry, can, if you have a lot of tokens, can shrink stuff into negative, nuke them into goo. Or, at very least, is a great way of building on sacrificial power. Both of them have ways that you can combo off of them heavily. So they're very interesting juxtaposition of these two decks based around them you are building. So that's the thing is, build around these as the top tier. Have, an interesting, unique deck list. Granted, it is a very singles deck list. It's a dual deck series. You're going to have to kind of go by what a dual deck series is. But it is incredibly fascinating. And it's interesting to see this start for an interesting figure in Magic history. And again, this is not normally something I talk about, these online-only products, these products that aren't physical. But this one, it feels important to talk about. They're interesting decks, if you want to check out the entire deck list. I would recommend them. It's a very interesting kind of product line that, Gavin came up with. It's probably... I can't say that it would be one of the best dual decks, but it does have a, being one that was won, being one that's being well-built. Having looked at the deck lists, they're pretty well-built deck lists for these concepts. They're pretty decent 60-card decks. If you ever want to check them out. Anyway, we'll leave things there. Please check out the rest of my stuff, whether you're on YouTube, whether on Twitch, whether you're anywhere that you're joining me. Twitch, I'm live. I do games. I do tabletop. I do all these kind of things. Make sure to check out live plays like Fall Alabama 168. Discussing tabletop, Saturdays at 6. Those are the big things I will shout out to the ends of the earth. But of course, you can catch all my tabletop stuff over on YouTube. Hey, YouTube people, please just support that algorithm. Check all this stuff. Comment. Would you be interested in buying this product if it was released physically? What do you think? Did you ever get it on Magic Online? Or, how about this as a question? Would you kind of go and maybe build this deck on some of the deck builders and play it online somewhere? Try it out. Would you be interested in testing these out? I kind of think they would be interesting one to see how they would do. Again, this is for other formats than Commander, but they're already a singleton. You might be able to adapt them into something akin to a Commander deck. You're already partially on the way there. Something to think about. Another 40 cards, choosing an appropriate commander from this time period. There's some blue-whites. There's some black-greens. Definitely think you could do it. And, yeah. Anyway, check out my social medias for updates on anything. And thank you for everyone that kind of hangs around, gives support to the channel, etc., etc. And I hope you enjoy more videos like this in the future. Till then, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.